Hey there, my name is Kelly Dale and I'm owner of Off the Beaded Path located in Forest City, North Carolina. For today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make the On the Rocks Trio bracelet. A couple of weeks ago, I taught you how to do the herringbone hoop earrings. Then the On the Rocks bracelet. Last week I showed you how to do the On the Rocks ring, and today I'm going to show you how to expand from the On the Rocks bracelet to the On the Rocks Trio bracelet. Now this is not good for beginners. I would definitely make this if you have done stitch work before, but definitely probably not your first project. You're going to do some of the same techniques that we did with the On the Rocks bracelet, but we're going to expand on that technique a little bit. So for the project today, you're going to need about 10 grams of a size 8 seed bead, 2 grams of a size 11 seed bead, 6 grams of a size 15 seed bead. For a 6 3/4 inch bracelet, you're going to need 48 bicones. For each size you're going to need bigger of that, you need to add 3 bicones. If you need smaller than that, you're going to need to take away 3 bicones from that count. It's going to take about 11 yards of fire line. I'm going to use 8-pound in my project, but you can use 6-pound as well. You're going to need a size 12 beading needle and a button. Again, I'm going to do the colors that I've done these last couple of weeks, so that way people who have purchased kits, if they purchase this kit, they'll have, plenty for their set. But the buttons I'm going to use today are a Swarovski button, like I used for the On the Rocks bracelet. But again, you can use any kind of button that you may have laying around the house or that you see fit to use. To start out, you're going to want to thread your needle with enough fire line that you feel comfortable with. You will have to add thread on your project. There's no question there. I am going to start with about 3 yards and do as much as I can with that. But use your own judgment as to how much. You know what you can work with, so just use your own judgment. I am in the shop today working, so you may hear the doorbell ding or the phone ring or whatever, but that's just what we have to do when we're at work. So go ahead and get your materials together, and I'm so excited to show you how to make the On the Rocks Trio bracelet. You're going to start out with just the size 8 seed beads, and that's all I have on the mat. We're going to be doing a ladder stitch to start, so I'm going to pick up 2 8s. And I'm going to bring these 8s down, and be sure and leave yourself about a 16-inch tail. This is what you'll go back to add the other end with when we get the bracelet completed, so be sure to leave that tail. Take the needle and go back up through just the first bead that you added. And I'm going to put my finger on that bead, pull the thread, so that when you pull it, your beads should sit side by side. Take the needle and go down through the second size 8 seed bead. Pick up 1 8. Take your needle and come straight back down through that same size 8 seed bead again. This will make a circle, and when you pull the thread, your new 8 should sit next to your old 8. Take the needle and go up through the 8 that you just added. I'm going to put my finger on it. This helps keep the base tight as I work. So far we have 3, and we want a total of 6. Pick up 1 8. Go up through the 8 that I just added to make a circle. Go down through the 8. That's 4. Pick up 1 8. I'm going to go down through the 8 that I just added. And go up through the new 8. This will give us 5. So one more. We'll pick up 1 8. Go back up through the 8 we just added. And then go down through that very last 8. This will be 6 size 8 seed beads that we've added. As you can see, it's crooked. But we're going to fix that because now we're going to zigzag our way back to the very first bead. This will help reinforce the base strand and straighten it up. So I'm going to go up through the 5th 8, down through the 4th one, up through the 3rd, down through the 2nd, and then up through the 1st, so that when you get this pulled through, your tail thread is coming out of the bottom of the first 8, and your working thread is coming out of the top of this first 8. Now you're ready to start your herringbone stitch. So you want to pick up 2 8s and go down through the very next 8 in your row. Pull that thread. Your 2 new beads will sit over your 2 old beads, and as you can see, they sit at a diagonal, and that's completely fine. We're going to go up through the next 8 in the base. Pick up 2 8s. Go down through the next 8 on the base. Up through the next 8, pick up 2, and then go down through that last 8 on the base, which is that 6th 8. So now you have 2 rows. We need to be coming out of this last bead here. Normally in regular herringbone, you could go straight up through. The only problem, you're going to see that thread, or you could pick up a few 15s or 11s. I don't want any threads or beads on the outside. So how I'm going to fix this is I'm going to come up through just the 5th bead on the base. Then up through the last bead on the 2nd row. So that when you pull, your thread will be hidden in the beads. We're ready to add our 3rd row of herringbone. So I'm going to pick up 2 8s. I'm going to work back towards the start. So I'm going to pick up 2 8s and go down through the very next 8 in my row. The thing you want to be sure of is as you go through that bead, only go through the top bead. Do not go down through both sets. So just go through the top. Pull that. Go up through the next bead in that row. Remember, don't go through the base row again. Pick up 2 8s. Go down through the next bead on the 2nd row. Just the top bead. Up through the next bead in the row. And then pick up 2 8s. Go down through the last bead on row 2. Now you have 3 rows. I need to be coming out of this last bead here on row 1 to start the next row. So I'm going to come up through the very next bead here in row 2. So it's the bead right next to where my thread's exiting. And then take the needle and come up through the very last bead on row 3. You will want to continue doing herringbone stitch until you have 6 total rows of herringbone. Right now you have 3, so you need to do this 3 more times. Once you have your 6 rows complete, this is what your piece will look like. At this point, we're going to start doing our separate rows individually so that we'll have 3 separate strips. So how we do that is I'm exiting, after the 6th row, you should be exiting here on the right side coming out of the last bead on that row. Pick up 2 8s, and go down through the 8 right next to where your thread's coming out, like we were working back to the other side. And this is where our original On the Rocks bracelet comes back in. We're going to go up through the bead right next to where the thread's coming out, and then the bead we just added. So that's our step up. This is row 1 of your new strip of beads. Pick up 2 8s, go down through the 8 right next to where your thread is exiting. Then we want to step up by going through the bead right next to where our thread is coming out, and then the 8 right above it. This is just like our On the Rocks bracelet at this point. Pick up 2 8s, go down through the 8 right next to where your thread's coming out. Take the needle, go up through the 8 right next to where your thread is, and then the 8 right above it. So that when you pull, you put your needle right here after the 6th row, you have 3 complete rows. You want to continue doing this 1 row until you have 63 total rows. So remember, don't count row 6 of the base. Just count 1, 2, 3 until you get 63. Now, if you need, this will make a 6 3/4 inch bracelet. If you need to make it longer, you need to add 4 rows at a time. If you need to make it shorter, subtract 4 rows. So continue until you get your desired amount of rows. Once you have the strip the length that you need it to be, you want to step up like you normally would and come down through the 2 8s on the left. So it's those top 2 8s. Go up through the 8 on the right, which is the 8 right next to where your thread's coming out. Pick up 1 11 and go down through the 8 right next to where your thread's coming out, and then through 2 more 8s. So you're actually going through 3 8s at one time. And these are going to be the 8s on the left. So that when you pull it, your new 11 will sit right in the middle. Go up through the 8 on the right, right next to where your thread's coming out. Pick up 1 11, go down through the 8 on the left, which is the bead right next to where your thread's coming out, and then through 2 more 8s so that you're going through a total of 3 8s. And then pull that thread, go up through the 8 on the right, which is the one right next to where your thread's coming out. Pick up 1 11, take your needle, go down through the 8 on the left and 2 more 8s, so you're going through a total of 3 8s. You want to continue this until you reach the bottom of your strip, okay? Don't go all the way down here, you just want to stop on your strip. This is what your piece will look like once you've added all the 11 embellishments on the top of the first row. When I get ready to add my last 11, it actually runs into my 6 bead strip, but that's completely okay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right down through the 8 right next, like I normally would, to add my 11. Then I'm going to go up through the first 8 of this middle stack. So that way it connects my 6th row together. Now I'll just begin like I normally would. Pick up 2 8s, go down through the 8 right next to where your thread's coming out there to the left. Go up through the bead on the right, right next to where I'm coming out, and the bead right above it. and then just continue adding the next strip and then working back down exactly like you did this one. Be sure to do the same amount of rows as you did the first one. We're going to do this row and the next row all the same size and working down with the same amount of 11s. So as you continue on with your project, you will begin to run out of thread. You don't want to actually tie any knots into this project, and I know that's going to sound crazy, but if you tie a knot anywhere in this project, you're going to see it. So what I do is I take my needle. I've got just a little bit of thread left here, so I'm going to take it and I'm going to work back down, and in a zigzag motion I'm going to work back down through my beads. You want to work in a way that you won't see any thread. And I'm basically just going to use the existing or the little leftover pieces that I have here to stitch through the piece enough to where none of this will come out as I start to wear it. And I promise you, if you leave yourself a couple of inches and you just work and stitch all that you can through your piece, you won't have to worry about your thread pulling out at any point. Like I said, anything that you try to add to this, as far as tie it off or add new thread, it will show as if you try and tie your knots into it. So you want to do all you can not to hinder that and mess it up. So once I've gone through and I've used up as much of this thread as I possibly can, I've got this much of it left, so I'm going to cut this little piece off, and I'm going to thread my needle with new thread, and I'm going to show you how I add this thread, so that way you'll know how to add the thread without actually having to tie it on. Got my needle threaded on with my new piece of thread, and again, I threaded on about 3 yards. Anywhere in the piece, I'm just going to preferably near where I ended, I'm going to start, and I'm just going to take my thread and I'm going to go through some beads. And when I do this, I want to be sure and leave myself enough tail that I can go back through and stitch it. So I'm going to leave myself about a 3 or 4 inch tail. And I'm going to work, and just like I got rid of my thread, I'm going to do the same to add the thread. I'm going to stitch through quite a few of my beads, making sure none of the thread shows as I work. And I'm just kind of zigzagging from side to side until I exit exactly where I would have started my next step. So as you can see, right here it is. Here is my little tail thread, and as I pull this, it's not coming out whatsoever. So I don't have to worry about this coming out. I am going to take my needle and stitch this through as I get more into it. But you just want to continue adding your rows until you get the next 2 rows complete. As you can see, I have all 3 rows completed, and I've added the embellishments on each row. I have exited the last size 8 seed bead after my last embellishment. And what I'm ready to do now is I'm ready to work back up and add in my crystals and my size 15 seed beads. So the first thing that needs to be done from wherever you're coming out, you need to come up to exit out of the size 11s, that first 11 here, as we work our way back up. So I'm going to go up through the size 8 seed bead right next to where my thread is exiting. That's the one here to the right. And then I'm going to go through the size 11 seed bead. And once you pull that on through, my thread is now exiting out of the 11 seed bead from right to left. So my thread is exiting to the left. And I'm ready to add all my crystal embellishments. So I'm going to get those beads together and show you. Pick up one 4mm bicone. And I'm going to go through the next 11 seed bead right above where my thread, right above the one I'm exiting now. And I'm going to go through that seed bead from left to right. Take the needle go back down through the 4mm bicone and put your finger on it as you pull, so that way it'll keep it in its place. Pull the thread straight the way it's coming out of the bead, and then take the needle and go through the size 11 seed bead below the bicone, going from right to left. This puts a thread, it anchors the 4mm and puts a thread on each side of the seed bead at the top and at the bottom. This is what helps straighten up your crystal. Now you're ready for your size 15s. You want to pick up 5, go through the 11 right above the 4mm, going from left to right. Pick up 5 15s. And go through the 11 below the 4mm, going from right to left. This will complete our circle of size 15 embellishments around the 4mm. I'm going to go through the size 8 seed bead right below where my size 11 is, and up through 3 more. So you're going to be going through a total of 4 size 11 seed beads here on the left. When you pull the thread and don't get it caught like I do, you'll be coming out right at a size 11 seed bead. So we want to go through that bead from left to right. Pick up 1 4mm. I'm going to go through the 11 right above, going from right to left. Take the needle and go down through the 4mm you just added, and I keep my finger on that 4mm and pull straight down, so that as I do, it'll help straighten the 4mm and keep it in place. Take the needle, go through the 11 below the 4mm, going from left to right. Again, this anchors the 4mm and gives you a thread on each side of that 11 seed bead, so it keeps it nice and straight for you. You're ready to add the embellishment, so you want to pick up 5 15s. And at this point, if you've done the On the Rocks bracelet, the regular one that I posted a few weeks ago on YouTube, you already know at this point what you're doing, because this is exactly like our On the Rocks bracelet. We're doing the single strip and adding the embellishments. Each time you do the embellishments, you are zigzagging basically from side to side, because now, whereas when I did this embellishment, I went through, was exiting to the left and went through beads on the left, now my thread's exiting to the right, so I'm going to go up through 4 8s on the right, and then through this size 11 seed bead. And you want to continue adding your embellishments on this far left-hand strand until you get all the way to the end. If you need help, more help adding the embellishments, you may want to refer to my On the Rocks bracelet. When I get to the end, I'll get there and show you how to add the other herringbone. Once you're to the very end, now you're ready to attach the 3 strands so that you can finish the herringbone stitch here. I'm coming out of the last size 11 seed bead at the very end, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through those last size 8 seed beads so that I'm exiting out of the top of the last one. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go down through the very next bead. Then I'm going to pick up the middle strand and I'm going to go up through the left hand bead here on the middle strand. Down through the right hand bead on the middle strand, and then I'll pick up the final strand and go up through the left side of the last strand and then down through the last one. so that that will connect the ends of the bracelet. Now, if your bracelet, the strands are not exactly all completely even, it's completely okay, because as you go down and add your embellishments to these two sides, it will straighten it up. Now, if you've got one that's way longer than another, you may actually want to check it and see if you've miscounted or anything like that. Otherwise, don't worry about it if they're just a little bit longer than the other, because like I said, they will fix themselves. So just like here down at the bottom, we want to be coming actually up out of this last bead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 11 seed bead right here on the very end, down through the 8 right below it. It's the one on the left. And then I'm going to go up through the one on the right and then the one right above it, so that I'm exiting out of that last bead. Now I'm going to simply do my herringbone stitch. So I'm going to pick up 2 8s and I'm going to work to the other end. So I'm going to go down through those 2 8s, or down through that 8 and up through the next 8. Pick up 2 8s, go down through the next 8, and then up through the next. Pick up 2 8s and go down through the last bead here on the end. I want to come out of this bead here, so I'm going to go up through the bead right next to where my thread is coming out. That's the one there to the right. And then up through the last bead of that row. And then I'm going to start my next row. So pick up 2 8s, go down through the next top 8, go up through the 8. We're working the herringbone exactly like we worked the bottom. So that once you go down through the last 8 on this end, you go up through the 8 right next to where your thread's exiting. That's the one there to the left. And then up through the last 8 here on the end. So if you look back to the beginning, we started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and then we have a seed bead. So we're going to do the same here. We have our seed bead. So this is 1, 2, 3. So I need to do 3 more rows to finish out the herringbone stitch. Now that I have my 6 rows complete, I need to finish out the very last row, the 6th row, so that it looks almost like the ladder stitch from the very first row. So how we do that is I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go down through the bead right next. Okay, let me start over. I'm coming out of this last bead here on the left. I'm going to take my needle and go through the next bead to the right. Then up through the last bead once more. And when you pull, make sure you pull nice and taut. Go down through the bead to the right, and then up through the next bead in this center strand. Go down through the bead to the left, and straighten that bead up there, and then go through the bead to the right that you just went through. Okay. And again, just straighten the bead out a little bit. Go through the next bead to the right, through the bead to the left, pulling it tight, bead to the right, and I'm just going to continue in this motion, connecting them as I would the ladder stitch. All 6 beads need to be connected to each other. Now, it's not going to be half as straight as your first row, but you can take and straighten it out. And if you want to, go back and reinforce this row one more time so that it will help to pull everything together. And this time I'm just going to do like a little zigzag stitch. This last row will get quite tight, especially if you're using size 8 seed beads, and that's completely fine. Now I want to stitch through to where I'm coming out of one of these center 2 rows. This is where I'm going to add the button to my clasp. So I'm going to come right out through here, and then you're ready to either add your button like I'm going to add, or for my button clasp, I'm going to be using one of these 12mm Swarovski buttons. This is the volcano color, and you can see how the hole is. It's straight through in the back. But now you can use a regular button that has a shank to it, just like this one. This is another sample of the bracelet that I've made, and I didn't have a button that would per se go with this, so I used the antique gold button shank. So as you can see, you can do the button shank, or you can use a button that has a hole through it, like this one. I'm going to pick up 3 11s. I'm going to go through my button and pick up 3 11s. I'm coming out of one of the center strands, and I'm going to take my needle and go right down through the next center strand. So that when you get it pulled, this is what your button will look like. If you want your button a little closer in, you could do 2 seed beads on each side, or 3. It's completely up to you. Now what you'll want to do is go up through the 8 you were just exiting, and you want to reinforce the button quite a few times. Once you have that done, you want to stitch down to the middle strand coming out of the first 11, and you're going to work the embellishment stitches over the middle strand and the far right hand strand, doing just like I did on the On the Rocks bracelet, which is the same thing as this part here on the far left. So once you reinforce your button, stitch back down and come out of that size 11 seed bead in the center and start your embellishments. So once you have all of your beads added on your strands, this is what the piece will look like. I've threaded the 16-inch tail, threaded my needle onto my 16-inch tail, and just like I added the button here on the other end, I've been sure to exit one of the middle sections of the herringbone stitch. You want to pick up enough seed beads so that your loop will go around the button. Now, since I'm using the same Swarovski button as I did a couple of weeks ago, I already know that 22 size 11 seed beads will go over that button. So now what I'm going to do is I take the needle and go right down through the next size 8 on the base, and then just so that everybody can see, the button slips through the loop easily. So now you want to take the needle, come up through the 8 you were exiting just a second ago, reinforce the loop quite a few times, and then get rid of your tail here. Then you'll have the bracelet complete. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make the On the Rocks Trio bracelet. We will have the gold and black version of this bracelet for sale on our website, as well as the pattern. And you can find those at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. Hope you and your family have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next week for another great video. Bye-bye!